I think justice was done yesterday, and there was only one conclusion. I think that could be reached after hearing the evidence given, and especially from David Olusoga as well. Very joyous, obviously.
Do you believe that it should have gone to court in the first place? Because from what you're suggesting, you believe that they were absolutely correct in what they did.
I just think it was a waste of the taxpayers' money. There were 10,000 people marched that day, and as obviously what we can see from video footage, there are many people who took part in toppling Colston that day. So to point out 4 people for them to stand trial for 10,000 people, it should never have happened. Justice was served yesterday, and they are not guilty, which is great news.
We would be potentially talking about a very different case had somebody been injured while that statue was toppled. Thankfully, nobody was. But if that were the case, would you still say that their actions were correct?
I think that's by the by, and it's just totally pointless question to ask. Nobody was hurt. What happened. Everybody was safe. The only person or the object that was destroyed that day was Edward Colston, who was thrown into the river, where he had thrown thousands of enslaved people into the river. So, I'm not going to go down that road of a health and safety point of view, because it's just totally...
But you don't think potentially that it could have been a dangerous situation, no?
So I'm not going to sit here and argue the case about potentially being dangerous. Nobody was hurt or injured that day. So, and I've, said what I have to say with regards to that. I'm not going to go down this road of a health and safety matter.
The Government Minister, Grant Shapps, says Britain's not a country where destroying public property can ever be acceptable. How would you respond to that?
I think probably the question that should be asked is, what can be done so this doesn't happen again? Let's start looking at statues and monuments and who those people are, what they stand for. Does it include everybody? Does it exclude some people? I think that's probably the more important question that people should ask themselves, rather than, does this give people a right to do this? How about people thinking to themselves what drove these people to do what they did, and then addressing that, rather than this divisive narrative that I've heard over the last 2 days. Let's people start coming together and ask why people felt that they had to take matters into their own hands and do what they did.
And why do you think that is? That people had to take matters into their own hands?
It's... As we all know, there was a petition for years asking for Colston to be removed. It fell on deaf ears. And people took matters into their own hands. But what we can't do is forget why 10,000 people marched in Bristol that day. And that's because of George Floyd and the death that he suffered at the hands of the police. And that cannot be lost in any of this narrative.
No, of course. But we know that the statue of Edward Colston has been a contentious statue, as you say, rightly, for many years. Why do you think it is that Bristol Council wasn't able to take into account the wishes of many people to see that statue removed?
I think that might have something to do with the merchant venturers and them having a say in the democratic process in Bristol. What this has highlighted is the merchant venturers who had objected to the statue of Edward Colston being removed. He's gone now. I think there are a lot of other things that need to go, the street names, etc. And we need to concentrate on that. And we're not erasing history. History is now being told in its full context. There are plenty of museums around if people want to know history in its full context, where, objects and things like that should be.
We know that a replacement statue was erected for some time, a statue of your good self. What was the thinking behind that?
Well, I think it was just to commemorate the day of the 10,000 people who marched in Bristol. I took to that plinth and raised my fist in a Black Power salute. I dress as a Black Panther because, as far as I was concerned, not much has changed. Black people are still being killed at the hands of the police. It stood for 24 hours. It served its purpose. I think the fact that it was there for 24 hours had a bigger effect it being taken down, because what it did is it gathered more conversation, and conversations kept on happening, and they still are. And here we are now, we're still having those conversations.
Just very quickly, we're running out of time. I just wonder if you might have a suggestion as to who you would like to see on the plinth permanently.
I have no suggestion as to who should be on that plinth. What I do know is that the Bristol City Council need to do something to commemorate the enslaved. And whether that's somebody on the plinth or something bigger than that, that's what needs to be addressed. Apparently there's a history commission that's been put in place by the Mayor Marvin Rees, and let's just hope they stick to their word and more action and less talking.
Jen Reid, thank you very much for speaking to us this afternoon and sharing your views with us. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you.